a sense of community when you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the show. Live your life on fire without the burnout. Those are words from today's guest, Mel Kaario. Welcome to the show, Mel.
So good to be here, Nancy. I've been watching you afar for a number of months, and I'm thrilled to participate today.
Oh, this is great. And I realize you live in Chilliwack, so I don't often get to interview people in Chilliwack. So this is kind of fun. So now tell me about your business. Now, I was just looking at your website.
Yeah.
And there's so many things on here that I want to read, but I want you to say it instead.
Sure. So I left a business about 12 years ago because I was beginning to feel some burnout. And I was unsure really kind of what I wanted to do. My wife thought might be a nice idea if I went back to school and became a pastor. And we talked about that a little bit, and we decided not to do that. And so I became a coach instead. And I've been doing it now for about 12 years. And really, in a nutshell, Nancy, I started out, coaching business people, entrepreneurs. And in the first few years, because I had been somewhat of a successful entrepreneur, although approaching burnout, I was coaching them on building a business, things like creating structure and processes, those sorts of things. But it didn't really, it didn't excite me. It wasn't really where my heart was, And what I discovered after doing this for a number of years, Nancy, that many of the people that I were coaching, they might have had a business that was profitable, and they had some nice things and some status. I have a business, I've got 20 employees and I've got a nice house and I drive an Audi, all those things. But quite a number of them were somewhere between, I'd say unhappy, unfulfilled, and maybe in some cases even downright miserable. And of course, I'm sure it'll be no real surprise to anyone to learn that if your life outside of your business or your work, if you're an accountant or something, if your life outside of that is unfulfilling, unhappy, maybe you're miserable, it's starting to affect maybe your marriage and your kids and your family life, it will seep into your business eventually. And it's going to impact your business because everybody's always focused on the business and not giving enough attention to what's going on outside their business or their office. And that is where I have spent the last 5-6 years, helping people identify what really lights them up, how they live a life on fire without burning out. And that's what I've been doing for, maybe 6 years now.
Right. I'm glad you said that because, when I interview somebody who is excited about what they do, that has a ripple effect, doesn't it?
It sure does. It sure does. It absolutely does. And if they're excited about their life, like the whole holistic package, I love my business, I love my life, well, my goodness, that person is potentially unstoppable.
Yeah.
And that's what excites me. That's what I love to do.
So do you have any examples of not, naming anybody, but somebody who comes to you and say, okay,
sure,
to do something, change something, but I'm not sure what to change.
Sure. I'd be thrilled to tell you a story. I'm going to call this person Joe. All right. And I was referred to, and this is a true story, but his real name's not Joe. Joe was referred to me by his cousin, who at one time was a client of mine. And this was maybe 2 years ago. It's such a classic story. So I was referred to Joe. Joe and I get on a Zoom call like you and I are right now, Nancy. We're getting to know each other, and I said to him, I said, so Joe, why are we talking today? What's going on in your world? And he said, well, Mel, I'm 35 years old. I live in Northern California, just outside of Sacramento. And he said, I have a beautiful home and I do drive an Audi. My wife drives a BMW. I have a lovely marriage. I have two beautiful kids under the age of 10. And he said, I'm an accountant. I've been an accountant since I was 28. So, and I work for one of these big global accounting firms with offices all over the world. My my career is on the rise, and people say to me, Joe, you're a rocket ship. Like you're just your career is you're on your way. You're already greatly successful. You've got the whole world in front of you, your whole life. Amazing things are going to happen to you. And he said to me, Mel, people tell me I'm successful. And he said, I guess from the outside I am. But he said most Sunday afternoons, I begin to feel very uncomfortable, anxious.
Mm.
And he said, the fact that I have to get up on Monday morning and go do that again, he said, it's just making me miserable.
Mm.
And maybe it's starting to affect my health. And he said, I'm a very healthy guy. I'm disengaged from my kids a little bit because we sit down to have dinner and I'm thinking about what my day and what I'm going to have to do tomorrow. And he said, I'm approaching being very miserable. And he said, what the hell is wrong with me? Because I'm successful, apparently. And so Nancy, and I said, okay, Joe. I said, uh, what inspired you to become an accountant? And he said, well, my dad is an accountant. And he said, my dad he's like a hero to me. He has been and still is a wonderful man, loves my kids. He's a great grandfather. He has been a wonderful father. And he raised us. I got all the love that I could handle. He was just a great guy. And he said, in high school, I'm in grade 12 and I'm approaching graduation and I'm having a conversation with dad, like, Dad, what should I do? And we talked a little bit, and he said, well, why don't you become an accountant like me? And he said, it seemed like a good idea at the time. And he said, the first few years, I got my accounting certifications, my CPA, and first few years were great. I was excited about life. But he said, the last 3 or 4, I'm not excited about this. And he said, well, what have I done? And I said, okay, Joe. I asked him, which is really kind of part of what I do in helping people figure out how to live their life on fire. I said, Joe, uh, what what did you love doing when you were a kid, maybe in high school, early college? And he said, and you could see him get a little excited. He sat up in his chair and he said, well, I live in Northern California. And he said, if whenever I had some time, I would spend my weekends in the mountains. He said, when I was in college, on weekends, if I had done all the work I needed to do, I'd go spend a couple of days in Yosemite Park, and I'd be all by myself, walking around in the mountains with my backpack, with my fishing rod, fishing in remote places, sleeping under the sun. And I remember him saying, just feeling the wind in my face, hearing nothing but birds, my adrenaline is pumping because there's a potential of running into a grizzly. So like my senses are just like on fire all the time. He said it was just like I was on edge and I loved it. And I said, wow, okay. I said, how much do you get of that now? And he just, his shoulders slumped and he said, I don't get anything like that.
Mm-hmm.
And I said, okay, Joe. I said, maybe I know what's going on. And so we spent, a number of hours together, and I walk him through this process I have where I help him see what's deeply important to him in terms of his values. And then I help him from his values. Then I have this framework I use where I help him go 3 years into his future. What would an amazing future look like based on these things these 7 things, because I help them figure out 7 of them. These 7 things that are most important to you, which define who Joe is. what would your life look like 3 years from now if you had it all with like without any limitations? And he described it, and then I help him get it. We create strategy and we go get it. Now today, Nancy, Joe is still an accountant because he didn't mind being an accountant. He despised being in that office wearing a suit under fluorescent lights in boardroom. So now he's still an accountant, and he makes less money, but that didn't matter much to him. It didn't matter when he saw his life 3 years from now. He still wanted to make a nice living, but it didn't have to be in that same way. So today, Joe is an accountant, but what he does is he's an accountant for wilderness lodges,
Oh,
fishing resorts, out in beautiful places. And he works from home in a t-shirt and shorts and flip-flops most of the time, but he does get to go and visit them. So he gets to experience like adventure and go off into very cool places a number of times every month. And now he's very happy. So his life is on fire
right.
most days. That's what I do, Nancy.
That is so cool. I love it so much.
Yeah, thank you. It's a joy to me. I am never retiring, right? Never, ever, because I get to do this with people. And quite frankly, Nancy, I probably, I go to bed sometimes quite emotional because I was able to do and experience and go on that journey with people.
Yes.
It lights me up, quite frankly. And yeah, it's a joy to me. I've found my gig and I just have such a good time doing it.
It sounds like a win-win.
Yeah, it is. It is. It might even be more for me than them.
But it's like for me doing this
Yeah.
is, it's the same type of thing, right?
Yeah,
Like,
beautiful.
I like helping and I like finding out about people. So if I can promote, once somebody's on my show, if I see their post, I love to share them, and it's just like, oh, that is so cool. And to know what you do and to find out why you do what you do, it's pure magic. It really is.
Yeah, yeah. Thanks for that, Nancy.
Oh,
so appreciate that.
No, because I love that. I love stuff like that. It's just so fascinating. Has there ever been, I'm just wondering, have you ever had to somebody who you really struggled with because they couldn't for some reason see that big picture, that 3 years down the road?
Yeah, it's yes, I have. And it's not to say, we would give up. I can pull it out of them. Here's what I've discovered actually, Nancy. Mostly it's men,
Okay.
quite frankly. And when I have this run into an individual that is having a hard time like seeing what an amazing future might look like,
Mm-hmm.
it's almost like their soul is kind of dried up a little bit.
Yeah.
And it's because I think in many cases they have just been pedal to the metal. They just the days, the weeks, months, maybe years are rolling by, and usually they're I'm going to say in their maybe 50s, late 50s, right? If a guy is in his mid 40s or younger, they generally don't have any problem with seeing what a wonderful future is. They're still in dream mode, kind of, so to speak, right? But when a man, I've discovered, when some men get a little older, that dream muscle dries up, right? And because they're just like the days, months, years are rolling by. I'm paying the mortgage, looking after my kids, taking them to soccer, or hockey or something, and they've just decided this is my life. This is it.
Do you think that in some ways men have been given a raw deal? Like, not so much now, maybe.
Yeah, it's changed.
Yeah, from my generation, like a man was expected to get out, get a job, support his family, and just keep going.
Yeah, I think so. That is, without a doubt, it has absolutely changed. But that is in large part has been the what a man is supposed to do. And of course, the flip side of this, that is, like, I think of my mom and dad. I grew up in North Vancouver. My dad was a commercial salmon fisherman. So I grew up working on a fishing boat from the age of like 11 to 23.
Ah,
And my dad did his thing. He worked real hard. I think he loved what he did.
right.
But my mom, who was just the most amazing mom, my friends loved my mom, but she did that stuff in that generation. Like, when I grew up in the, in the late 60s and 70s and in the 80s, my mom canned fruit and vegetables. She baked bread and cookies. And I'm the youngest of four boys, and she'd get maybe sometimes laugh and frustrated because she'd bake 5 dozen cookies, and then my brothers and I would get in there, and like, half of them would be gone by midnight. But she did it
Yeah,
for years and years and years. And of course, that's what women did also. So I
absolutely.
think, the flip side is they also might have got. I mean, there's something wonderful to be said about the stability of a family like that. I'm a little old fashioned like that. I think it's lovely. But if in fact, a stay at home mom has something like inside her
Mm-hmm.
that is just, and it aches inside her, and she's got a dream.
Right.
And just like that man stuck in the day to day,
Mm-hmm.
she's also stuck in the day to day, and she might be a wonderful mom, and the most wonderful stay at home mom. And in my opinion, it's just my opinion, of course.
Yeah.
It's the most important job in the world. Um, but maybe she could do that, but still, there's something she's dreaming about
Yeah.
that is kind of out there, and she's thinking, "Oh, I can't do that. I can't do that. It's not possible." Well, it is my joy to help her see what it could be,
Yeah.
and maybe help her husband see that she can still be a wonderful stay-at-home mom and do all these things. But let's figure out a way for
Mm-hmm.
her to express herself. So she'll even be more joyful in what she's doing, being a mom,
For sure.
because she's got some other things that are lighting her up.
Yeah.
Right. And I have done this thing I've done this for groups of single moms, what I've described with Joe. I
Okay.
have done it for a group of single moms. I did it for 5 of them. And again, I think I might have had more fun than they did, but it was tremendous. It was tremendous.
Right. I mean, there's nothing worse, I would think, than having that ache inside you. Like
Yeah.
when I interview musicians and people, singers, those kind of talent, I always say, like, if you have the talent and you don't use it, there's always a dissatisfaction, right?
Yeah.
So what you're
Yeah.
saying is basically the same thing.
Yes. Yes. That's exactly right. I call it, I think, like most of the people I might work with, I've worked with some younger folks that are like I have a guy right now. He's 20.
Mm-hmm.
Most I have to find most people when they're in their 20s, for the most part, they're still full of piss and vinegar. Still, I'm gonna figure it all out. It's
Right.
okay. But if when a person maybe I say, maybe when they're approaching their mid 30s and they start to get what I call a little niggle on the inside, like something's off.
Right.
Like something's off. I'm not sure, but it's off. And then in their 40s, it becomes a bit of an ache. And
Mm-hmm.
then they leave their 40s, and if what they're dreaming about is not happening, it can turn into kind of a bit of an acute pain on the inside.
Yeah.
Yeah. And my mission is, I just I it makes my heart heavy to think about someone when they're 78 lying in bed thinking, what the hell just happened?
Yeah.
What why did I not make a move when I was 37 or 55? And it's never too late, ever, ever, ever.
Hey, listen, I started doing this when I'm in my 60s. So there you go.
Way to go. I want to hear, but I know probably lots of folks who watch this regularly know about Nancy. Like, Nancy, tell me about, can I interview you just for a moment? What did you do before you were 60?
Well, gosh, I had a cleaning business. I cleaned roofs and lawns and all of houses, that sort of thing. Then
Okay.
I got arthritis, so
Oh yeah.
I
Yeah.
can't continue that. And then my husband passed away in 2012, and that could have changed my life a lot. So I just started doing some volunteering and not knowing what I wanted. But then I saw an ad for Shaw TV. Shaw TV had a community access channel, and they were looking for volunteers. And that's how it all started for me for doing that. But prior to that, sorry, I'm jumping ahead a little bit. I was in my 50s, and I started doing some stand-up comedy.
Wow, so cool.
Yeah, and then in my 60s, I got into doing improv, and then, as well as this show. So I did all kinds of things before that. I worked in office, I worked in stores like a lot of people. I was a high school dropout because in my day, like I was born in 1948. So in my family, education was not something you strived for.
Yeah.
You did grade 8, you get out, you got a job. That's just the way, I went back and finished my high school later on, but there was no encouragement to go further. So I lived at a totally dissatisfied life, for years, right? Menopause changed my thinking.
It gave you a reboot, did it?
It sure did.
Oh, thanks for sharing all of that. That's neat to hear.
Well, I'm willing to share it because I think, like you said, a lot of people don't realize that it's never, ever, ever too late. Too late is dead.
Yeah, right? No,
and
never too late.
Yeah, I'm sure, and I hope for you and with your business that you do get people who are in their 60s, 50s, and approaching you and not knowing what they want, and you can help them find.
Lots in their 50s for sure. Lots in their 50s, because that they're starting to feel that pain of, like, if I don't do something now, like I don't want to be that person that is full of regret, right? But absolutely, it's never too late. Never too late,
I agree with you 100%. Yeah. I live in a building of seniors, and I don't know how many of them do very much. A lot of them have health issues, so that it makes it difficult, but you can still do stuff, That's my thinking anyway. And if they could talk to somebody like you who can help you find what that thing is, because like when I look at all of your quotes, where did I go? I lost them here somewhere, because there's so many things that you say to people, like you have that ache inside, you telling you something is missing, right?
Part of this my method, I guess you could say, to help people see their future is I have 8 questions that I ask them. I give them the homework, these 8 questions, and I ask them to find a quiet place, whether it's in their office or at home, in their sweatpants, whatever they do, without limitations. Don't ask any family member, don't ask your partner in life what they think, because often they can give you thoughts that are not really true for them, right? And I ask them to answer these 8 questions. And then when they've got these questions answered, we get together. Very few of my clients are actually in Canada. You probably see, like, if you've looked at my website at the bottom, you'll see some endorsements there. They're everywhere.
Right.
And we get together on Zoom, and I help begin to attribute values. I have a sheet of 150 values, and we begin to attribute values to all of their answers, because there's something about this answer. Like, as an example, I would ask them something like to list 3 times in their life, that could have been when they were 18, 3 times in their life when they felt like absolutely on fire. There's nowhere else in the world I'd rather be than doing what I'm doing right now, right at this very moment. I ask them to list 3 times, at least 3 to 5 is better, of those moments in their life. Where were you and what were you doing? Now, the answer to that, and it'll be different for everybody, the answer to that is they're expressing something that is deeply important to themselves, right? Deeply important. Like, my number one value is adventure. That is my number one value, and I must have it. And I have a deep definition of what adventure looks like for me.
Right.
Like mine includes things like spending 3 months a year on another continent, eating in restaurants where only locals go, and it's loud and vibrant and the food is amazing. And I have to yell at my lovely wife across the table because it's so loud because people are enjoying themselves. That is part of my definition of adventure,
Okay.
right?
Yeah.
And whenever those people are describing these things, there are values, deeply important things to them attached to that, right?
Yeah.
Right. And I have a number of other questions that I ask them as well that are sometimes they're challenging to answer, but they always have a good time doing it because they're like digging up stuff that they never thought about.
Yeah, you make them think, right? Yeah.
Yeah, really makes them think. Yeah, really makes them think.
Cool. Well, before we run out of time, because I don't want that to happen. Now, you mentioned you have a website, correct? Well,
yes.
I do too. So people can get I'll make sure it's written, but people can get a hold of you on your website. So that's www.melkaario.co, correct?
.co, not .com. And of course, my last name is kind of unique. It's Finnish, by the way.
Oh, it is?
Okay. It's Finnish, yes. And so so just make sure you spell it right. Yeah, melkaario.co. And my email address is mel at the same thing, at melkaario.co. Yeah. And if people want to talk, if they're local, I just love meeting people. If we get together for coffee, well, the cappuccino's on me every time. And I can say, if you've got a spouse that is feeling low, stressed, uninspired, then I would love to talk with him or her. If you've got a kid who's maybe over 25 and they're also uninspired, don't know what to do with the rest of their life, people like that are ideal for me to spend time with.
That's awesome. And we're going to end it there. Thank you so much, Mel. Just stay on camera. Thank you, everybody, for watching the show. Like I said, you've been listening to Mel Kaario, and I'll make sure his information is that you'll be able to find it. So reach out to him if you're one of those people. As he mentioned, if there's something missing, there's something missing, reach out to Mel Kaario and he'll help you find what it is you're looking for. Take care, everybody. Yeah. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, Nancy. Thanks, everybody. Take care.
And peace out, everyone.
A sense of community, Chilliwack's a place to be. A sense of community where you're free. Rolling through the mountains, rolling through the valley, rolling through paradise with me. It's multicultural, you're sure to see it all. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see. Come party in the park, go dancing after dark. Chilliwack's the place to be, you'll see.